All right, welcome back to another installment of recapping the Ultimate Girls Trip, the ex-wives edition. I always feel like that's such a weird name, the ex-wives edition. Not my favorite, but nonetheless, the episodes keep getting better and better. Really, there was a big reaction behind episode 4, and I thought episode 5 was just as good. Overall, I will say that yeah, it does rival a little bit based on the stories of season 1. You know, season 1 really relied on the fun and the lavish accommodations, and when you are just resorted to the personalities all in Bluestone Manor, which of course Bluestone Manor is a place that anyone would want to enjoy, but when you're kind of confined, the personalities have to sort of come through, or you're if you're not a big personality in this series, you're going to get left out. I think Tamara had some lower less than funny confessional, so she'll have to kind of pick it up. And I wasn't really like on team Tamara or team Vicky in terms of Dorinda. And a lot of people online, on Twitter or whatnot, were very like really thinking that Dorinda was so much. And then I saw a handful of people later on that were very much in the same vein as me, like, that's my house, these are the rules, like all you got to do is just say yes, even if you mess up again, say yes, and let's just shut up about the whole thing. But that's how I felt on episode 4. But Dorinda really does push a little bit, and I still sort of find ways to kind of argue out some of the situations she's went through. I'm kind of I'm basically saying on episode 4 she was nearly perfect, even though a lot of people were really feeling a certain way about her. But episode 5, it was a little harder to kind of explain, some of the things that she's saying, and were they said the wrong way, or the delivery, or is she too wrapped up in like making a scene for television? Is she too interested in fame? These are some of the things that came up. I still kind of don't think so, but I'll go through the episode with you, and then we can kind of see what's what, and break it down from there, because to me it's a quite a good series, and I'm enjoying it. Anyways, real quick, and also, one thing we have to do for sure is give a huge round of applause for this cast. I mean, it is done very well. There was always some talks of like some of the cast members coming in late, or who was the original or whatever. But whatever it was, this group is really good. Again, so far, if I was doing a scorecard, even though Vicky's the most uninteresting in terms of being in the house, she's still good for the TV show. Vicky, I'm sorry, Tamara, to me, I thought was going to be a lot stronger, and I thought Taylor was going to be not as strong and fun and witty and mean and happy as she has been. She's given a lot of layers. So so far my prediction on everyone is pretty on point, except for Taylor being more compelling than I thought, and Tamara, who I really started to, you obviously enjoyed her on the seasons. Not that I watched all the Orange Counties. I will admit to that Orange County wasn't really always my favorite. I didn't watch it like I would watch a New York, a New Jersey, a Potomac, or whatever. But it was still fun back in Tamara's day. And I thought Tamara was going to come on this show and light it up. And she has just really, her confessionals are even boring. The best thing she said was menopausal manor or whatever for Bluestone Manor. I mean, the hackiest of jokes. So she's just not hitting. So that is unfortunate for her, because I'm sure she would like to be funnier, and she's just simply not. And things like that happen. So what can you do? And again, Taylor being a little more intriguing. I was shocked. Let's pick up on this episode. So we've got this morning breakfast, and with Dorinda, it's always this idea of like almost everything is not what it was, because the next day she's kind of like onto the next schedule, onto the itinerary, beautiful positive energy in the morning. Sometimes that rubs some people the wrong way, because people are starting to be like, well, wait a minute, I don't really like what you said yesterday, and now you're going to almost be dismissive of it. Although I don't think she's dismissive, I just think she recalibrates her day in the morning, maybe forgets, although she says she doesn't forget at all, the drunk ways that she kind of went. And then there's the question of like, is that Dorinda, or is that just drunk Dorinda? Like, they always, with the excuse of like, well, you're drinking, it's your truth. But like, is Dorinda have a mean streak just in her, or is it because she's drinking and it's kind of all coming out? I really don't know. But again, so far, nothing really to like speak about. I don't really think it's like an issue per se. Jill wants someone at the confessional door, which was funny to me. Jill's just always high maintenance in the best possible way. This is, as I told you last week's episode, gonna be a hard one for me because Jill and Dorinda are two of my favorites. So if they're bickering, this is not good, yet so good. My example for that is how on Jersey, I love Dolores and I love Melissa. And while they don't like go back and forth at each other, I don't think they actually like each other. And it's always good when some of your favorite cast members actually don't like each other. So it's interesting to see where this Jill and Dorinda things and this Jill and Dorinda thing goes, because we're seeing that some of it might have to do with maybe the way they're trying to position themselves for being on future episodes or at this time, I don't know if it was announced that there was a legacy. I don't think so. Or a rebooted, new casted Real Housewives of New York. I'm not really sure. But the point is, I made a quick mention of that last week, and it was funny that it kind of came up in the episode. But we'll get to that. Jill with the confessional door was too funny to me. Dorinda is up like nothing has happened. She's just focusing on the schedule. As I said, I think that could kind of rub people the wrong way. Luckily, they were outdoors and Dorinda and Jill were able to talk. And it kind of was a little bit, odd because they were essentially talking about her. And Dorinda said, "Oh, no, don't stop on my accord. Like, continue to say what you were going to say." And it does force them to talk. Now, my question to you is, would you have wanted, if you were in Jill's situation, would you have wanted that talk to happen now? I kind of like the way Jill was approaching it. She's like, let's go in the hot air balloon. Let's have breakfast. Like, let's have fun. And then we could talk about it. Dorinda did position it in a way like, no, let's talk about it now. My only thing about that is I'm a winded speaker. Like, I speak, long-winded like Jill. And so I feel like you're knowing that you got about 10 minutes to go to the hot air balloon and you're not giving enough time to like explain your points. And if you know somebody like Dorinda, who is your opposition in this matter, she talks a lot too. So it kind of, I didn't like that if I was on Jill's side. If I was on Dorinda's side, it shows an assertiveness, and maybe that's what she was trying to do. Excuse me. Speaking of thirsty, it shows an assertiveness, like, no, we're going to talk. We can talk now. I didn't enjoy it. I thought they did the best that they could. And I think Jill really kind of sort of wanted to squash it in terms of like, it may be a deeper issue, but I don't want to do this now, which made the most sense. Yeah, I really do not think that Dorinda saying, let's talk real quick before we got in the hot air balloon. Not on your itinerary, Dorinda. No. So I was kind of more on Jill's side when it comes to that. Let's see. What do we have next? The question does become, they did sort of smooth it over, but let's talk about what did kind of transpire there. The question then becomes like, oh, well, it was a bit thirsty, Jill. You come off a bit thirsty. And the other side of it was like, or was it just her supporting Eva? I gave you my viewpoint last week on last week's episode that I think it was harmless. The only thing that would have been harmful is if Jill was kind of being dismissive of like the actual work that Eva was doing, like, oh, it's just a silly podcast. I could go sit in there with you. I could support you. I got tons of friends who do shows. If she was doing it like that, I would think Jill would be on the wrong, but I really don't think that was what it was. And I think Jill was totally fine with not going. She just was like making a comment. Dorinda really had to drive it and really showcase that you're, being in Eva's ear and Eva's just being kind to you. So that's always a weird thing. When you are, I give her a lot of points, Dorinda, in terms of being the person who's throwing the events and has a schedule. And while it is a little protective of like, okay, well, I purposely put Eva in this room so she could be up at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. or whatever it was to do the Ricky Smiley morning show. Huge morning show, by the way. Great job for Eva. Like, she almost feels like this is part of her hospitality duties, and I don't think that they are. Dorinda, I don't think that these are part of the hospitality duties. If they were, you probably would have said a couple of things and you would have laid off of Jill. So this is why throughout the episode we kind of get a sense of like, is there something bigger? Like, is it a Real Housewives of New York issue? Like, what's actually happening? And it devastated me, as I told you. on the trailer, I was a little upset that there wasn't a lot of Jill, A, and then B, the only time we did kind of see her is that she was going up against Dorinda. So I was a little like, no, I want these two, if anything, to get more airtime separately. But if it's going to be this way, it's going to be this way. And I think Jill did handle herself pretty good in each and every space that she had to deal with Dorinda. I don't know that I could say Dorinda always held herself the best accountable. She does this thing, and we are all guilty of it, where you make these bigger not excuses, but yeah, we make these bigger excuses to make sure that we're indicating that well, it was because of this that I was trying to take care of and protect and help out, which is what you did caused a problem to the the grand scheme of things. And when you say it like that, like, Dorinda's totally right. I've done that a lot. I've been like, well, you kind of got in my way because this, but it can't be done in the vein of it makes you mad, or it makes it just kind of comes back later. And I certainly don't think that it was intending to come back. I think Dorinda, it's not like I think Dorinda was resentful. So I want to at least make that clear. I definitely don't think she was resentful, but her excuses did tell another story. So, and it's tough for me because I'm such a Dorinda fan. When people were Dorinda fans early on, when it first happened, when she first came onto the scene, episode 7, but let Jill tell it, episode 4, season 4 rather, season 7 and season 4. Of course, the season 4 joke is how Jill said she brought her on initially to the series at one of her events, and they showed the picture of her at the event. No, I Dorinda didn't jump out ever, like, initially. I think that was because the season she started, I was still really into Heather, and then Heather and Bethany, Bethany coming back. Luann is always insanely a great TV personality. So Dorinda just kind of appeared one day. But I will tell you that the year that she went, and the reason was like, oh, Dorinda doesn't have good behavioral skills, and she really picked on Tinsley. I didn't see it that way. So even though I can see a little bit of fault with the way she's treating Jill, I also could see, like, the way Dorinda said, let's leave it like this. What did she say? I overspoke, or my delivery was bad, but you also took it out of proportion. And I mean, that could be true too. You could like Jill, and you could say it didn't have to be that big of a deal. She didn't have to, be. Well, I don't know. I don't want to say that she was wallowing, but she could have just been like, "Oh, okay, it's a big deal for me not to be in the room. Chill." But what Jill does is she goes and starts a new story with everyone. She starts a new story with Eva. She starts a new story with whoever will listen. The confessional, So she, in her own way, does drudge it back up quite a bit. So I guess there is something to be said about that. Oh, and so then the question is she thirsty? Almost all the cast members said she was, and I totally don't think she is. I think that Jill VC is who she is. They made fun of her episode 2 about her first episode about how she is so always has something to say. So I don't think she's thirsty. I think she's just alive. She's in the moment. She's her daughter's she's her mother's daughter. And we've seen that before. I totally don't think she's thirsty, but everyone seemed to feel that she was. And I also think that's such a weird notion. We'll get to it a little bit later with is she thirsty because she wants to be back on the show? And is it even lame to want to be back on the show? You got people like Dorinda saying, I'm on pause. I want to be back on the show. Tamara saying it was the worst thing that happened to me. I can't wait to go back on the show. Vicky wants to go back on the show. So there's been a turn. The older housewives from seasons past, they kind of looked at it as like, if I'm let go, you kind of arced it in a different way. Maybe like Cynthia Bailey, who says, I want to go on and, work on my marriage or something like that. But I think in reality, Cynthia Bailey would rather be doing the show. So there's a little honesty and vulnerability and warmness about the fact that a lot of the housewives are being true about it. That's why I don't think it's a big deal if Jill, states that I'd love to be back on the show. I want to be back on the show. I'm still friends with all these girls. Like, I don't see an issue at all with it. And so the fact that they kind of not tear her down, but want to break her down, like as the thirsty one, I'm like, look at the room. I mean, there's a lot of thirst. I mean, there's probably thirst in this recap we're doing, people are thirsty. In order to do a good job, sometimes you have to be efficient. I remember one year within my broadcast career, actually, or whatever I was doing, television production at the time, whatever it was, I remember I took almost no longer. I took like 2 years off of Twitter, 2 years off of Facebook. And while that's all honorable, it really doesn't do well for your work. So it's like, which one is it? And now, here we have the YouTube channel. We have the other YouTube channel that's got 200 videos. This one's got over 200 videos and counting fast. So then it's almost like, well, you're thirsty now because you're constantly putting out content. Well, I remember the 2 years where I wasn't putting out the content and wasn't really pursuing that arena. How many opportunities fell through. So it's kind of like, I hate to say it, because there was a day, I come from the era that there were people that were thirsty. You'd look at them sideways. You'd be like, oh, we don't do it like that. Don't be so cheesy. Don't be so needy. Actually, I come from a generation that says, let the work speak for itself. But now we're in a generation that says, no, you let the work speak for yourself. The best, artist painting or whatever it is going to go by the wayside. So we're now in a generation where more is more is more is more. And so if Jill over the course of the time has mentioned to Luann she wants to kind of be part of the show again, or Andy, or in interviews, I don't know why that would be looked at as being thirsty, because of where we're at. Let's say someone's on the bubble, oh, we want to bring Jill back, but then you got someone like Leah who tweets every 4 seconds and it's always unfunny, but one of them happens to hit, or maybe she's friends with Julia Fox or something. Is that the girl's name? It's all that not messy, what is it called? It was not messy, busy stuff that lives on Twitter, and it does very well, and then suddenly those people have more opportunity. So I hope I'm not going on a tangent here, but I'm just trying to explain like what it is to be thirsty and what it is if you choose to stay away from that, which I have done. And it severely hurt my career, but I didn't care at the time because I was at a pivot. I was going somewhere else directionally. I wasn't really trying to do some of the radio stuff that I had always done since 2002. But I could tell you, as I closed my eyes and opened my eyes later on and see that everyone had shifted, people that rookies, like real green rookies, wearing green shirt. The irony. The green rookies like ended up excelling because this new platform wasn't about, kind of tweeting a little bit and, kind of saying, this is what I'm working on. And, I'm going to let the work speak for itself. No, it turned into, especially with the YouTube, or all the algorithms, really, Facebook and Instagram, it turned into if you weren't presenting your work, it would not be seen. And I face that quite a bit sometimes. I don't think our show is bad. I think we have fun here, but we're way low in terms of, who's tweeting it out and who's supporting it, et cetera, et cetera. But, we start small. We've been in this business for a long time. My first time behind a microphone was probably 2002, and a couple other, working as an extra and stuff like that, even a year or two before that, and post-production at Fox Sports Net or whatever. Like, I've done quite a few things. Anyways, I don't know why that I'm trying to defend Jill for not being thirsty, but I'm also trying to explain the way the arena is set up. It's like, if really you look at the mirror, everyone's thirsty, but it did make for a good scene. And sorry, I talk about myself. I try not to. So I'm just giving a whole concept of like, how dare anyone say Jill's any more thirsty than anyone else is basically my issue. One other thing before they kind of smoothed everything over was Dorinda says, well, I don't have a problem with anyone else but you. And my gosh, God doggone it. Was it not the funniest thing to you that I mean, flashbacks are always good, when it's like from your season, but when you're doing a flashback from like yesterday, like all of it. Dorinda tells Jill, oh, well, I don't got issues with anybody except you. So, this is really about you. And then Jill's like, are you kidding me? You got problems with everybody. And then the flashbacks all were contained within the last, what was it? The last 4 days or whatever. Jill seemed to have, Dorinda seemed to have some type of thing with virtually every cast member. But, I don't know if she has something or she's just an actual loud, passionate person. And I totally side with Dorinda on so many cases. And that's why I feel really weird in this particular moment, because it's like, well, I do specifically like Dorinda quite a few of the times, but I can't be naive and always support some of her bad behavior. So that's why this episode will be fun to break down and or challenging for me. Can we talk about something fun? The hot air balloon, it is a fun activity. The ladies explain how, like, in a hot air balloon, it could either burn or it could fall down. I think that was Vicky, and I'm just like, go with it. Don't bring up stuff like that. I think Brandi, who decided to be too chicken to go, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, maybe I wouldn't have done it either, but to say like, oh, it doesn't look like there's enough air, you guys are gonna die. Like, I mean, just let's not do that. The whole idea was to lighten up. I think that's what Jill and Dorinda even said. Let's lighten up. Let's get on that hot air balloon. But it's feeling like there's a lot of tension and stress. But that's why we have our darling. I mean, I wonder what they're going to do in terms of bringing her back to Atlanta, because she is winning. She is winning the hearts of a lot of people. She really is. Phaedra says, well, now I have to go change my unit because, as an actress in the role that I played. So two things. She's saying wig is out, saying unit is much more, debonair or to the quality of who she is. And also the way she sneaks in that she had an acting role so seamless. Like, obviously that was perfect. And I'm like, oh man, like, Phaedra is just winning on these confessionals, and she's really somebody that I think a lot of people are enjoying and wanting to watch, and probably will. I mean, we'll see her. We've seen her on Dubai with Caroline Brooks, and I think that's fun. But like, I really feel like poor Candy. I don't know what will happen, because Candy is the star, but Phaedra will probably be asked back, right? I mean, and would she do it? That's the question. I mean, she stated she was dating a new man, so Phaedra is like giving us a lot, but this was something that really didn't sit well with Candy, and I'm such a team Candy type of person. But let's just take a minute and just think it through. Anyways, Dorinda is proud. She's proud of Bluestone Manor. She sees the aerial shot where I guess she's never seen Bluestone Manor from that vision, and she feels accomplished. And people could judge her all they want, but that is something to think of and be really like, how do you navigate when you were supposed to ride out right out to the sunset with her husband, and then he's not around, and what she's able to maintain, and a lot of the isolated, lonely experiences she's had to put herself through to have all that she has. So I think there's a part of me that is really okay with her being very happy and accomplished, because I think we should all be accomplished and feel proud of the things we do. Small achievements, big achievements. I didn't really grow up like that. I was almost more like, don't say anything that's going to be, don't toot your own horn, don't be arrogant. But there's a line there. There's times we should just feel proud. Like, if somebody were to say, hey, Ronnie, what do you think of this, recap in this podcast and this YouTube channel? I would probably almost default to being like, oh yeah, thank you so much. But I should be like, yeah, it's amazing. I work really hard on it and I enjoy it. And I think a lot of people have fun within viewing it and being a part of it. Like, I think it's good, but we sometimes don't really have that. And so to me, I took that part of maybe my insecurity and really spilled it off into Dorinda in terms of her feeling accomplished, and me saying, that's right, Dorinda, you should feel accomplished. Life always changes on a dime, and this is not where she expected to be on many reasons, Richard or the housewives, and yet she's now in it and she's reflecting, and I think it's great. Jill, as the morning goes on, like we kind of been talking about, Jill shares her frustration with Eva, and Eva chooses to sort of support Dorinda, who I thought, and even Eva thought, Dorinda has really been trying. And this is not my issue with Jill. I wouldn't say that, but this is the thing with Jill. It's like, it's still coming up. It's still coming up. And I would just think the best bet would be, yeah, you had the conversation outside before the hot air balloon, but if it's officially like buried and squashed, like, let's let it be. But if it's still drudging up, let's just wait to talk to Dorinda personally. So what Eva kind of was doing was, Eva just felt like she didn't want to be in that situation where she was of the group that were kind of talking about like, oh, I think Tamara and Vicky, oh, well, she snapped on us yesterday and she snapped on me today, in terms of what Jill would say, or not say, but, as an example. And I like the way Eva kind of said, let me go at least check on Dorinda, because it is hard. You got to admit, it is hard to be the person who's hosting all of these women who, are on these shows with these great big personalities, and some of them have bad behavior and that gets rewarded. I think a lot of times Dorinda is misunderstood by her anger. Sometimes I don't even think it is anger. Sometimes I think that's just who she is, and people address and talk differently. You know what I mean? I talk with sometimes more bold words, and it doesn't mean like I'm extra angry or happy or sad or mad. Like, I was talking to somebody yesterday and I was saying, oh, I just, sometimes it doesn't have to be the black and the white. It could be in the gray area. It's just like, oh, this kind of upset me, but I'm cool. Let's just talk about it. I think Dorinda is like that. She just is like, it's not that big of a deal, but other people react to that very differently. And that's where you have a challenge. And I guess when I judge Dorinda too, I also think that, like, I feel like I would be a great friend with Dorinda. I don't feel like she'd be, like I'd be like, oh, wah, she talked to me kind of way. I'd probably talk to her the same way. It just, I don't feel that with Dorinda. But I do realize, at least in this episode and towards the end of the last one, as much as I like her, she does have faults every once in a while, and she does do things that are sort of crossing the line, and that's, you don't want to see that. But is it a TV show? We're just watching. We're not going to get mad at nobody. There's no point in that Twitter. There's no point to do that. Even though some people try to do it on Twitter, it's just like, what a waste. Don't do it. Uh, Moving on. Let's see. They start to talk about are the women in the room fame hungry? And I guess the question also becomes, is John fame hungry from, John dated Dorinda. And so the whole idea of like fame is kind of coming to the table, which is such an interesting concept. And it's a, of course, a breaking the fourth wall moment. And I think that it's it is different, and especially some of the women in different stages of their lives. I look at somebody like Brandi, who was already, dating an actor. She had a career of her own, this, that, and the other. Her navigation is a little bit different than somebody who necessarily never was going to do anything like this, and the cameras just decided to roll on their fabulous life, and now they have a name that they sort of can't escape. But then what do you do with that? So I think it's a very slippery slope and a challenging thing to do in terms of dating. Yes, it's got to be a hard one, because, like Phaedra even talked about later in the episode, are they dating you for the fun, the fame, the fortune, the booty? What is the draw? But at the same time, isn't that how we date anyways? Like, you don't go and there's somebody who doesn't have the things that make you happy. You don't really, that's not who you're going to fall in love with. You're usually going to fall in love with the people who, oh, great, he's got security, he has this, he has that. Like, those attributes aren't necessarily making you, there's nothing wrong with you for wanting that, is what I'm trying to say. I don't think, right? Like, wouldn't you, I think the person who is in that situation, actually Karen Huger said it best. And usually Karen Huger is always lesser to Giselle Bryant being the star of the show. And Karen Huger, she reads from the note cards and everything, so she's a little bit slower, not as witty. But she did say one time, and I'll always give credit where credit's due, and I think Karen does wonderful as the second top housewife on that show. But she said something along the lines of, I be it marry a poor man as I would marry a rich man. But the thing is, I haven't seen a lot of poor men as happy as I have seen rich men. So that's like a good way to think about it. Like, one will think, oh, is that somewhat of a gold digging comment? Not really. Karen's just kind of like owning her value and saying, this is what I want. Why shouldn't I get exactly the upper echelon of what I'm looking for? And if I want somebody funny and warm and happens to have security, this and this, there should be no issue. I've tried dating, not wealthy, and usually it's pretty drab. I'm not saying she said that, but that's like kind of a thought process, I think. I'm trying here. I'm trying to find a way to really make it make sense in that regard, because it is it is challenging, and that's the side of just, a housewife. Now let's talk about the side of being a housewife and then you dating, you know like John or anyone, the public. Where do you go? I've always felt that it really sometimes feels the best to be in a synonymous career thing. The only thing is, like, we see that with like Summer House a lot, and sometimes within that, the Summer House kids or whatever, not kids, but the Summer House cast, you sometimes wonder, is it more of a conditional love? It's like, it's great because it'll help our careers. So on that side of it, it's kind of not really great to date within your industry. But then if it's somebody who you're like Phaedra, you have a name, you do have fame. Is every guy that she's gonna date, are they gonna be looking for a little bit of a come up or whatever? Phaedra's successful. Like, you do have to kind of watch it. And so it's a great question on the table. The joke that was not funny was menopause manner, which was who did I say? Tamara, who I thought, she just wasn't delivering today. Is my opinion. I did not really feel that she was delivering with the sound bites, but that was it. All right, just taking a little break here. Let's move back in. So let me see, what do we want to do here? Dr. Dorinda, what can't she do? This is in reference to when Eva had cut herself, and Dorinda gets really excited and like, oh, I got it. I'm sure a lot of people who don't like Dorinda are like, oh, she's so full of herself. Again, life is short. Be full of yourself. Be happy. Be confident. I got no issue with it. Didn't bug me at all. Go ahead, Dorinda. That's right. You do it all, Dorinda. It's your house too. That's right. Team Dorinda. Until it comes to Jill. I defend Jill so much too. So they're going to a cute little lunch. It's downtown. It's lunch in an alleyway. Some of the women have some kind of comment about that, but it's like, it's cute. It's the Northeast. It's like, you find the most, one time we did a Memorial Day. I wish I could find the photo for you. I'll just explain it. We did a Memorial Day barbecue in a like a parking lot alley in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. That happened a couple years ago. And so you make fabulous use of so many great spaces in these smaller situations. And I don't know, it just doesn't feel the same. Like, I feel like, yeah, if you're in Orange County, there's like space among space among space among space among space, and you would not be in that little tiny space. But also, are you being riddled with like culture around those parts? And I mean, yeah, you want to get the little Great Barrington Berkshire's energy. And I don't know, I didn't think it was like that funny that they were in an alleyway. I thought it was actually really cute, really cozy, and yeah, shut up, everybody. No. What else do we have going on here? Let's see. So Brandi comes up with the question. Everyone, gets instantly like, oh no, Brandi's talking. What's she gonna say? And all she said was, Phaedra, when's the last time you were in love? And Phaedra says that she does feel like she's in love now, but then she said, but I can't talk about it with these cameras here. So I'm like, oh my God, she's like prime to come to Atlanta. And Real Housewives of Atlanta, I know there's been some talks of like, oh, people don't like the season, but I feel like that's just complaining. I think it's fine. I think actually I like it more than many, because I when I say never enjoyed Nene, never enjoyed Portia. So to have a season with my beloved and the glorious Kenya Moore, and I like Marlo, and I like She by Sheree, like, and Candy is a superstar. And yeah, they got some things to kind of grow into. I think the new I think there was a new housewife that just came onto the show. I think she's going to gravitate in there a little bit better than even Drew and the other gal. So it's still a great series. I don't think it's a bad series at all. But I mean, that was a little bit of a nod saying, oh no, I can't talk about this on this show, but maybe on the next show. I mean, she didn't say show, but that's how I took it. I was like, oh God, Phaedra's going to be the lead peach holder. If she kicks out Kenya Moore, I'm going to have a problem with it. But I don't think she will. So then there was a little moment where they kind of switched it up and they started talking about Vicky's dating life. And I guess Tamra kind of says that Vicky isn't this prude at all. She actually is very, you know, um intrigued, and she likes what she likes. But for whatever reason, she kind of plays it very subdued. She says, well, I was just dumped 6 days ago. And what is important, and we talked about this here on this show too, and I do it a lot on accident too. It's the way we talk to ourselves. You can't say it that way. Yes, you have broken up, and you are now newly single, but to say it that way is such a knock on yourself. I just got dumped. No, you didn't get dumped. Anybody who wants to step away and not want to be with me, I mean, this is what I'm thinking Vicky should say. Anyone who doesn't want to be with me, they don't need to be with me. Now, that doesn't mean you dismiss your sadness and how much you're going to miss him or whatever, or maybe how much internally you were upset with yourself because you made maneuvers that like let him be around when he wasn't giving the best of him to you. They haven't had sex in 13 months. That will tell you all that you need to know. But that still doesn't mean she has to beat herself up. She can beat herself up in the regards of like, I made some decisions that I maybe wouldn't do in future. It was a learning lesson, but I'm gonna pick myself up. And I like the way Eva jumps right in. She's like, no, don't talk. We don't talk like that to ourselves. I mean, you really shouldn't. In terms of the other guys that they were kind of mentioning, I guess a couple people really went to one of her exes and were saying that that's when they had really good sex. But then there were some issues with that too. So it just gives a little bit more of a layer with Vicky, which I liked. The only person who sort of ruined that in the alley was Brandi by going too far. And Brandi goes, "Oh no, he wasn't cute anyway." And it's like, I know you're trying to support Vicky, but like, that's just, I like the way Vicky, put it together and was like, "No, we're done. We're changing the topic and we're gonna move on." And really, it was a good Vicky moment. It started off vulnerable with the, "Oh, he dumped me," and it was sad or whatever. But like, I really feel like it made me want to know more about her. It made me want to know more about like how she got in that situation where 13 months goes on and they have this much of a fracture in the relationship that they're not having sex. He's at the house that, her home, driving her car, all these things, she kind of mentioned a couple days ago or a couple episodes ago. And, it's sometimes hard to have to re-say what you allowed, and in certain situations she allowed that. And so I felt like all the girls had a lot of support for her. Phaedra even said it feels like we're really coming together right now, and I adore these moments. I'm one of the ones in terms of recaps or pop culture in general. I don't need the Jen Shah storyline to enjoy Housewives. Like, sometimes that's not even that good. It's not that interesting. If you could make a good escapism TV, some lovable moments, some snarky moments, some really deeper moments that you really didn't realize, kind of like what Taylor eventually says to Brandi in this episode, but we'll get there. That's when it feels really good as far as a television show. I think episode 5 was great. I would give it like a 10. It was a really great episode. Anyways, we move off Vicky's dating life. We kind of return home to the pool. Jill's talking with her mother. We're excited to see her mother in the flashbacks. But let me tell you, Mama is not happy. And the way she's talking, she's like, well, if I see Dorinda, it's not going to be a good day for Dorinda. More than anything, because we're all getting of a certain age. None of us are getting younger by the day, by the minute, by the nanosecond. And I just thought it was, I like Jill so much. And, to just still have her mother around in her life and, Jill seems so confident. Yeah, she cries sometimes, but she seems very confident. But taking to her mother in a phone call felt nice. And, again, if I'm taking a scorecard, what am I doing for legacy? Am I bringing Dorinda? Am I bringing Jill back? And maybe that's all announced already on Reddit. I'm not spending the time. I'm just going off the reports that are, there is no reports yet of who officially is on the show. But if I'm taking notes, Dorinda and Jill should for sure be ushered into the legacy and maybe a top storyline because of their little complex relationship of knowing each other about 20 years, but not really knowing each other. Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, Brandi makes probably the funny, raunchy, but funnier comments. I guess there's no way for me to like lightly say it, but when Jill's there, she gets a bunch of flowers and she gets Flowers were great, the roses were great, but she gets like an apple, and Brandi goes, "Oh wow, you finally got your apple back," which is kind of what they've been teasing her about. Like she's the thirsty one, she wants to get back on the show. Which I told you at the beginning of the episode, I don't think she's thirstier than anyone else because everyone else is doing the same thing. Everyone else is thirsty as well, or not thirsty, but everyone else wants to confess that they want to be back on the show. Again, it's not being done the way things used to be. You used to be casted, let the work speak for itself. You could kind of go do what you need to do, and you acted more professionally, like like you almost had something else cooler to go do. That's how the casting used to go back in the day. Even like 2002, 2001, 2003. These were the memories I had when I first started in radio and broadcast and television and all these things. But now, if you do that philosophy and you're not, Bethany, let's say, oh, you'll get lost in a shuffle before you could say Elise. Wasn't she on Real Housewives of New York? Elise, was that her name? Now, Barbara, I love. Barbara, I do not forget about Barbara. I don't forget about Cindy, but was her name Elise? And I liked Elise, but you see what I'm saying? If you don't stay in that mix, the way they do things now, you won't get put back on the show ever. And Elise is probably, doing the right thing. She's maybe too cool for this whole situation. She's maybe at a higher level in life. I don't know, but you go ride that, you're going to get Leah and 15 of her sisters are going to end up, on the show over you. So I've really hated the way we're making Jill be termed as thirsty. B, the way in our social media world that we're in right now, almost everyone to succeed has to be thirsty. And C, I miss those days. And just take it for what it is. If you're a younger viewer or you never were of this time, then you're just learning something. I miss the old days of let the work speak for yourself. Be too cool for the room. Leave early. Like now, everything that gets rewarded is actually the opposite. And I really wanted to go back to the days of like, oh, okay, you got busy, you did your thing, and because you're great for the show, I'm going to bring you back on. But I'll do my tangent now. Actually, my tangent. I feel like I need a glass of water. I'm going to have my glass of water, but hold on one second. My light tangent, and it's not that. Oh, I love this cast. Let me take a glass of water. Okay. My light tangent is that it's kind of seeming like it's turning into the American Gladiators of being casted on the show. Everyone needs to one up the next person. Everyone needs to have like a page 6 article. And I don't like it. And I feel like all throughout the while, Andy Cohen's like, oh yeah, every housewife is replaceable. And it's like, yeah, but what you've done, the way you've kicked people out, to make sure your show's successful, watch what happens live. I just don't like the lackadaisicalness that he sometimes puts out there, like, oh, it's whatever. And yeah, I don't like it. Almost feels like now more than ever. Do you agree with this at all? It almost feels like now more than ever, like New York is the greatest example of that. At this point, we could have already had another New York and another New York, but we made such a big deal of the Ebony thing. And now we have every single day, Luann's going into a bar and drinking again and not drinking again. And like everyone's developing these storylines that they want to be splashed across page 6 in order to be like the relevant person to be casted. And I'm like, I don't like the way, instead of just being a show and saying, this is who we're going to believe in, this is who we're going to cast, believe in your people, believe in your talent. But it doesn't look like they're doing that. And I know that everyone's disposable, but Andy Cohen is disposable. I mean, if you really break it down, I'm disposable, but not really, because what I do is what I do, and the fan base that I have for the people that enjoy me. Just like Andy Cohen could come from here and he could go somewhere else or whatever the case. But we are all disposable to a degree, and we're all not disposable to a degree based on what we do. But I just don't love the way in his position he's lackadaisical with the like, I don't really, and I guess I don't really have a solid solution, so maybe I'll dip it back a little bit. But it's enough. I've seen it enough to be like, why are we making these women like crazy? Just let them go. Like they're either fired or they're not. We all lose jobs. We got to move on. But it feels like with Housewives, it's this. Oh well, you never know. It could be a revolving door, and so I just wonder the lifestyle of some of them. I wish more of them would be like I think Kelly Ben Simone recently on an interview was like, I would do it, but the money's got to be good. There you go, Kelly. Like I want to see more of that. Whereas we're seeing actually less of that. We're seeing more like it makes it like, oh, anyone could be cast, anyone could be fired. So they all got to be on their P's and Q's. And I don't really like that. Like that doesn't feel good. That doesn't seem like a positive affirmation for women. This is one of the few shows that we see women of a certain age getting to be on the television. It's just a thought I have. I don't know. I don't want to go on and on about it because I don't want to make it sound like I'm being a bitter bitch about it or that Andy Cohen is necessarily doing anything wrong. But have you been able to see what I'm talking about? Where yeah, like they're all fighting for the, we don't really know who's coming back next season. And so then they all got to kind of take to Twitter and create drama. I don't like that. I like just say who's coming back. And if they can't come back, this season, maybe you bring them back the season after that or whatever, and you're still friends with them. We get that. But I don't like all of these, what I would like to call, even though sometimes they have bad behavior, dignified, amazing, beautiful women of a certain age having to kind of always be at high alert. Like, that's when you kind of say, get the fuck out of here, and I don't know who I'm even pushing that towards, like who am I stating that towards? But I know that I have that feeling. Anyways, that's just my feeling as a viewer. That's how I feel sometimes when I watch the stuff, and it's kind of coming all present in the show because so much is going on that it is a breaking the fourth wall. And where do you stand with the show? And did you say this? Did you do this? So it kind of makes me like, as I'm watching it, the show, I'm loving it because I'm kind of being able to give my opinion based on what we're seeing. Anyways, back to Thirsty Jill, as everyone's saying. Brandi saying she's super thirsty, whatever. She's got the apple, that's great that he put the apple in the roses. It's like Jill's, honorary returning to Real Housewives of New York moment. And so Brandi says, well, Gary knows where Brandi says Gary knows where her BJs are buttered. Just basically meaning like if you're gonna, the key to Jill's heart is to, have something Real Housewives of New York related, and of course it will make her happy. So that's funny. I hope Jill took that with a light chuckle and wasn't mad about it. I hope. Jill does say, though, however, she wants to be a friend of. So again, I love the communication. I love how Tamara communicates that she wants to come back. Vicky sort of communicates she wants to come back. Dorinda wants to come back. I mean, again, I like it more if it could be affirmed. Like, listen, you let me go. I still want to be a part of this if there's an opportunity, but I don't want to I don't want any of these amazing. And even if I don't like these ladies specifically on a show, like I still don't want to see anyone groveling for Andy Cohen's approval. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. That's just not for me. It's not a bad thing, but it's just not for me. And, he also in the network, sometimes you got to make a decision like what, and obviously this is not Bravo, this is Peacock Network, but the same. You have to make a decision. Sometimes I think the network just wants to say yes to everything, but actually limit it all to like, a tenth of the success that it would have had prior. And everyone's kind of involved some way, somehow. It's just kind of all thrown up on the wall and seeing what sticks. And I think, well, what are you an executive for? What are you a casting director for? What are you a producer for? That was the job. And now if we're going to just like throw shit up against the wall and see what sticks, I mean, then you should go get somebody from CVS and to run and Walgreens to go run your, creative development department. It's just something I think of, and not in a mad or mean way. I'm just saying. Anyways, Jill says she wants to be a friend of. I think they all like that. Jill kind of explains that being a friend of is great. I'm still involved in the situations, but it's not all heavily relied on me. And I think she has her moments of what she went through with Bethany or whatever, and being deemed as one of the harder housewives to be around or whatnot. And I think she's learned her lesson is all I'm saying. If a lesson was supposed to be treated to her, she's one of my freaking favorites. Give her a damn spinoff. I just can't stand Jill not being in a good position and she having to like sort of beg for her job back or be looked at as thirsty. I don't like it. She has had, I say all the time, one of the best taglines you're ever going to get, which was the, I run with a fabulous circle of people or whatever. So simple, but it told you everything you needed to know about the show, and within 5 minutes, everything you needed to know about her. I mean, what's the problem? And I don't want to hear, oh, she didn't score high on the tests and the studies. I don't care about the tests. I don't care about the studies. I care about what Ronnie thinks, and what Ronnie thinks is never wrong. So Jill should come back to the show. Boom, boom. Bring on Allie too. Let's move on. Dorinda's heated pool, and she likes it cold, just like her heart. Was a note that I wrote. I was just making a joke because I make a joke like that about myself sometimes. But Dorinda's also like, oh my God, you guys got to get in the heater. I mean, the heater. You guys have got to get into the heated pool because that's a lot of money. And I think that's maybe where the issue that Dorinda tends to have is she does so much, and she's so much into this hosting role that if people don't like exactly show you 100% of appreciation, you get resentful about it. I think Dorinda kind of has that frustration. And so on one side, I think some of her frustration is because she's trying to get things done and people always have a problem with something, hey, we're going to go do this. And then there's like 7 little comments. And even though they're not intended to be mean or complain, in a how do you say that? Complain, a complaining manner. It still gets exhausting, I think, but let me see. She, God, I really do defend her a lot. Well, because she hasn't really made me mad yet. But that's something that can make somebody mad. Like, oh, I heated the pool for you and you didn't even, go in the pool. Well, we didn't want to go in the pool. Like, what can we do? You're the host. This is what you're, I can't tell you what not to do because you didn't know what I was going to do. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have full control over everything I do, Dorinda, is maybe something that's kind of hard for, for her. Brandi asks about a threesome rumor. Oh, so at this point, we're at Red Lion Inn in Stockbridge, Massachusetts. Brandi says it, and this is to Vicky. She says it in such a way that she has like a concern, but she totally did not have like a concern. It was actually a little bit more of a darker situation. Not darker situation, but a more of a no, well, she was just Brandi. I'm trying to think I'm just saying that it sounded like it was very concerning. Oh my God, I've been meaning to ask you. What about the threesome? That was what it was. That's so the duality in Brandi. And yeah, she got a little, nervous. Vicky did. But as Tamara says, like she is actually, really not a prude, as she's sort of been explaining and or kind of showcasing. So I think the reality is maybe she does and would have and has no problem talking about these types of things, but I just don't I think it's like more like, well, even if I have a problem or not have a problem talking about these things, I definitely don't need Brandi to be the one, spouting it out, especially if we're not that close. But she was able to kind of hold it together, and she was able to kind of have a fun moment right there. And yeah, it didn't really go haywire like it could have, but it definitely was alert, because it was like, Brandi, you can't ask that kind of thing. And also another moment that we have that I thought was cute. If you're sick of Dorinda, you were sick of her doing the oh, don't worry, I've got a first aid kit. What can't she do? I'm a really good host, aren't I? If you're sick of that, you're gonna hate her Dorinda showcasing that she's a waitress, because she used to be a waitress from 14 to 24, long period of time there. At the Red Lion Inn, which we've already seen on Real Housewives of New York before. So she does her little waitress bit or whatever. And some people who don't like Dorinda could be like, oh God, look at her, full of herself. But I'm like, at the same time, we're filming a show. This is a place I worked at. I have a little fun with it. Why do we want everyone to sit down, and just cross their fingers and zip their lips? Like, I thought it was cute. So I'm gonna go with the people who love, Team Dorinda on this. I'm not gonna say the rest of the night was like that. However, I was totally okay with it, and I thought it was really fun. I thought it was really reminiscent of, Dorinda being 14 to 24. Like, even thinking about that, like, we see the evolved, grown woman with, um, loss and raising a daughter and all the things, and it kind of shows you a more hasn't really seen the world Dorinda just yet, but yet how she's still so the same, perky, wanting to be the best waitress. You could totally see that. Um, Okay, and then we've talked about Brandi and the threesomes and all that kind of stuff. Well, not Brandi, but Vicky. And that's the weird thing with Brandi. Brandi just feels like because she talks about everything, she expects everyone else to talk about everything. And I like Brandi a lot, so I hate to put a slap on the wrist over anything, but that would maybe be the thing. It's like, just because you talk about all the stuff, maybe not everyone else would want to. However, what do we think about threesomes? Everyone sort of strayed away, and Dorinda was like, I don't want this many people in the room. And I just think, there is a threesome interest. Yeah, I'm with it. Like, not every day, once a year, you want a little more, you want a little more cushion for the pushing. You heard me? So it's like, I just know what's like what. Yeah, but no, I don't even know the words. Ugh. I'm just. I would have. I mean, I guess if everyone kind of was like, no. It's hard enough with someone else. But yeah, no, don't. I'm with Brandi. You represent those threesomes. Obviously, Vicky did not have one. Well, not obviously, but we hear that she did not. Anyways, this is just the stuff that Brandi says, and it kind of incites our questions and, ooh, what happened or whatever. So Brandi just being Brandi, and everyone's sort of reacting to it. Finally, everyone goes inside into the dinner table inside. The place is established in 1773. Okay, just take that in. And I was a little bit not happy with the way they made fun of it. It's old, smells like old people. Where's the respect? Like, why wouldn't you look at it differently? Wouldn't you look at it as like, wow, this place was established all these years ago? Like, you ever go you ever see like a nature, like a forest or whatever, like trees, whatever, and you're like, oh my god, these trees have been here for like hundreds and hundreds of years. Like, that's exciting to me. That's very like it makes you feel like it's so much. Not everything is as big as like our moment, and I don't know. I was not very happy that I think it was Tamra, Vicky, it was a couple of people who were like, oh, this place is old. I thought more like, no, don't you bask in being able to go to something that has as much culture and much storytelling as the Red Lion Inn? And beyond that, Vicky starts, let's whoop it up. And because she's had such a negative attitude for so many of these days, everyone's like, oh, there's the Vicky, that we missed, that's back. But she was painting it in a certain way where she was painting it like, like this is less than, like, what's it gonna take to have like some fun here? And it's like very disrespectful because the people, the restaurant, the staff, the people that are also eating at that establishment, they come there for an enjoyable time, a peaceful time, albeit a different experience. And there's plenty of times to be in a mosh pit, Vicky. This is not that. This is 1773. This is Red Lion Inn, where Dorinda spent some of her greatest, early memories. I don't know. I just wasn't a big fan of that. Those comments that were a little jarring, but didn't even seem that mean, but they were mean. That's what I thought. The good side of it, though, with Vicky, though, rather, is that it was a little bit of good energy. So hopefully we could filter that energy. I think Dorinda really, got her together pretty well. And, there was not really an issue at hand, but, Dorinda does kind of transition from that point and asks about, well, we sort of already talked about this a bit ago, but about fame. And what is it like? It was weird because it was a question, and then she did the answer, so we couldn't really get what the answer was from anyone else, but we got like her struggle, and it kind of opened up a little bit to me, um where or why Dorinda feels so challenged with certain things. She stated this in a really, and I never even had this perspective for housewives, so I really feel bad, and you would want most housewives, if they've done their 5 years, 6 years, they've made a good name for themselves in their business, and they could kind of move on, maybe do another show, like Brandi's done several shows, but you never really think of it as, once I'm on pause, and the way she said it, Andy tells me I'm on pause, rather than hearing what it's about, I just, want to go step away. And what Dorinda was explaining to everyone is like, you guys see, you guys see, you guys see, I do all the things. Like, I put in the effort, the energy. And I hate it because I love what Dorinda is saying, but like Dorinda's sort of trying to win an Employee of the Month award in the land of housewives. But in the land of housewives, it's just if you perform, if you don't perform. In many seasons she did clip, 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 not well, bitch, all these things Dorinda has performed. But like, I hate that she's equating it like, well, I shouldn't have had a reason to be on pause because this is what I brought, this is what I brought, this is what I brought. But in some aspects of jobs that are reality, or an acting role, a singing opportunity, it's not necessarily like you being an Employee of the Month, which is going to keep you on. It's just what is needed for the show or the project or the opportunity. So I felt really bad, and I thought that was a very like enlightening Dorinda moment for me, because she was saying like, how could I be let go? Because I'm doing the things. And it was even not as a knock towards anyone else, but maybe other cast members were just phoning it in, And I think she kind of mentioned that years ago, because I was never a Tinsley fan. I mean, I watched Tinsley on her CW, was it CW reality show. I thought it worked out perfect for that time. It was closer to her, let's say, Fall from Grace and like, social light experience. Housewives, I think she slowed the show down so much. Very timid, was not for me. Her mother was great. I'd keep her mother on the show. Tinsley, never want to see again. It seems like that she's going to be on Ultimate Girls Trip. I think that is just one of the sillier moves that anyone could make, but no one wants to see it. No one wants to see it. But anyways, going to that, I think that there was a lot of, oh, well, was Dorinda really hard on her, really mean to her? I don't think she was. I don't think Dorinda was. But beyond that, I think Dorinda hopefully could learn from this experience that this, unlike any other job, is not a Employee of the Month kind of a thing where your loyalty will be given just based on you. Well, unless you're Teresa, you're going to be there for a great period of time just because you put in a lot. The show needs what the show needs, and sometimes it's a casting decision. But it hurt my soul a little bit that she was taking it as, I don't understand because I did all the things. And the note I wrote was Employee of the Month, because the way she was explaining it was like, well, I should very well, still have a job because I checked all the boxes or whatever. And it's sadly not, when somebody doesn't hire me, or let's say I'm doing a radio show and they let me go, it's because they are shifting the show. And I have to somehow not take it personal. And I think the reason I don't take it personal is because I know there are rooms for improvement. Like, even with this YouTube channel, there's like 19 trillion things I want to do. And sometimes the resources don't allow for that just at the moment, but you got to keep going. But it allows for you to dig deep and say, okay, now, were there things that I could have done to make it better? Maybe. But am I going to like let this bozo opinion, somebody else's opinion, decide that I need to feel bad about myself? The project's not working together. I'm not on the show no more. I got to keep it moving and look for the next thing. And so I just really felt a little bit sad for Dorinda in that regard, because I felt like I learned a little bit more about why she ticks and why it doesn't make sense to her and why the pause is actually so severe, to her. That's just what I thought. I don't know if you received it in that way, but that's how I saw it. And I was like, oh, maybe there's something more here with Dorinda. And as far as like, her feeling like, she needs to get her annual performance review, and that's just not the way it works in this world. And beyond that, she's also gotten for years and years and years. She's been a top tier, and she still is a top tier housewife. And she's done all the things. It hurts me that she was so sad about it. Anyways, but that's the moment they're talking about fame. And some of the people react differently to her talking about fame and talking about, how it changes people, and, her relationship with why the show let her go, as I was just mentioning. But it makes her feel sad because she's like, I do so much, I don't even nap. But that's the funny thing, because that's baked into the storyline on Real Housewives of New York. She was always somebody who was, what do you call it? Taking the nap. She historically said, I have to take a nap at this time or I'm no good. And her whole thing is like, I'm go, 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 go. But this is maybe the one time I kind of need to break it down just in the middle of the afternoon, a quick little nap, so that part was just a little bit funny. And then, Vicky says, her nap is different than Dorinda's nap. And then Dorinda says her nap is about not confronting people, and Dorinda's naps are necessary. It's too much. And the too much is going to happen a little bit bigger and more. So Dorinda versus Jill sort of becomes a thing. Dorinda explains that Jill's being thirsty, trying to be seen in these different scenes that have been filmed over the years. And Dorinda also goes on for the jugular and says, you came to this event, you came to that event, but I didn't see you because I was doing a job. You do remember working all those years ago, don't you, Jill? And that was like, I don't know. That was a great Housewives line, but that's a tough one. Now let's talk about the issue at hand. Let's talk about the issue at hand with the, let's see. Let's talk about the issue at hand in terms of Jill kind of being ignored at these scenes that are being filmed for Housewives of New York in these later years where Jill's not involved, but she's still around. Because I've never had an issue. I've always thought it was a really weird cop-out when, let's say, like a Jennifer, is that her name? Jennifer from New Jersey, and I'm not saying she said this, but the tweets go around and she supports the tweets or whatever, or it's been said that Jennifer is being iced out by the New Jersey cast. I've never been a fan of that. Not the icing out part. The icing out, if you're lame as Jennifer has been lame, we don't want to talk to you. Get out of here. That I'm never sympathetic of that person. I'm just like, you know what? You made your bed. You think they still want to talk to you, Jen, and you're so lame. You cause all these problems or whatever. And no, then we're not, there's no attack on you, which, sometimes they try to, some of the Twitter team Jen, what's her name? Aiden. They try to make it as if it's like everyone against them. It's not everyone against them, but when you are unaccountable for so long, people don't want to be around you. So I've never been terribly had an issue with the icing out situation. Turns out everyone's going to ice out Monique. Monique had her issues. You know what I mean? I just don't like that conversation. You're on the show. You do your actions, Jennifer, whoever, and people don't want to be around you no more. They don't want to be around you no more. There's no plot to take you down. That's so silly to me. So silly. But on the other hand, I am completely, what is it? I am completely not exactly happy with the current housewives being a little shunning someone like Jill because they kind of don't want to bring her in. And so they give her the littlest attention. And that's what Jill's saying. You give me little attention. We're friends for 20 years. Maybe they're not 20-year friends, but you know what I'm saying. And you're kind of closing me out. So you're not even giving me friendship / opportunity. And then it turns into, well, what are you there for? Are you just there to try to get back on the show? But it's they put Jill in such a bad situation. And here's another thing. Who made you the casting director? You know what I mean? So if there are housewives that, I think it was, Jill had said she wanted to come by Bluestone Manor, before she went to Florida for the winter. What'd she say that 2 years ago or whatever? And, you're thinking, oh, she could have been there. but she wasn't. Some of the other housewives from past, where I think Heather was there. This is the season before Heather was on the last season, which ultimately ended badly, which I'm so sad about because I liked Heather. But I encourage it all. Like if I'm watching my main cast and at Bluestone Manor, you get all the old school girls, I'm into it. And I guess Jill has sort of always been in that situation, and Jill's kind of explaining that, like, you're kind of shunning me, and what's the deal with that? But then that's a great question and comment, and I don't know the answer, but it gets worse. And it makes us all think, who did in fact allow cameras at Bobby's funeral? Because now Dorinda's sort of painting Jill as like being more thirsty. And I really felt bad for Jill in this situation. And in the confessional, it kind of sounded like Jill was getting flubbed on her words. She was kind of mixing up her words a little bit. And, I had an assistant, but I didn't have an assistant. And, they didn't CC me, but this. So there may be a moment that Jill did put out the word, but you're making it like it's all about being thirsty and being on the show. Jill might have just put out the word because that was a sensitive time. If you do break it down, like to make it sound like Jill is just thirsty, I don't like that, because if you really, really break it down, they meaning the fan base, the audience, we grew watching, Bobby with Jill, and this was, something I think the fans wanted. And I also think Jill didn't want to spend a lot of time on this show talking about Bethany yet again. And it was might have been Bethany's not idea, but somebody in that world, production got wind of it. And I just, to blame it all on Jill, I'm just like, either I'm Ronnie, stupid. I might be so dumb, but I'm not falling for too much of it where it's all Jill's fault, or at least I don't think it should be all relied on her being thirsty. And I don't really like the concept of Dorinda making it sound like, well, you almost exchanged Bobby's funeral for a on-camera opportunity. Dorinda, that's really salty to say. That is really shitty to say. And again, Jill was on the show. People watched and loved Jill and Bobby together. Maybe it was a fan base thing. Maybe the higher ups was production. I mean, it was Bethany mic'd. Was she not mic'd? I don't know. I don't know who's scamming who in this situation. But you know what, Dorinda? On that episode, people wanted to see Bethany and people wanted to see Jill. You know who they didn't care about that episode was Dorinda. And that's the sad thing, Dorinda. So I just didn't like it being formed in that way. But such is life. Some people out-argue the others. And I don't know if it was Jill didn't want to out-argue her, or she just like put her hands in the air and is like, I don't want to deal with this. This is too much. And a lot of times it is too much, especially if you're not getting paid a certain amount of money. It could be kind of negative and nasty, and you're just like, fine, whatever, Dorinda. But those are my thoughts. Like I said, the whole when you're actually on the cast, I'm being iced out. I usually think there's some accountability that needs to be had by that person almost every time. But in terms of cast members, like what did Dorinda say? I specifically, when I'm there to go do a shoot, I'm there to do a scene, and I don't even pay attention to anybody. But at the same time, who Jill is. I really feel, Dorinda, you're making an active decision to block her out, to not give her any opportunity, to have a little opportunity, on your show or whatever. But what it comes down to is it even your show? You didn't create the show. You're a cast member on the show. You're as good as gone, as much as, like we say, Ronnie, I've worked in, tons of radio shows, but some of them end, and I just got to keep going. I didn't create the radio station at that time. You know what I mean? I have to just take what I did and love the work that I did, but I got to move on. And so to kind of like hold somebody back is kind of sort of adding up to Jill's point, and I kind of feel like she might have been right in that regard. I do love the way she said, I hate fighting with someone who drinks too much, so I'll apologize. I'll get naked. I'll spin around like a top. I'll do anything to end. What did she say? I'll do anything to end this so I can have a good time. And, I don't ever put these two against each other, so I hate that they're arguing this episode. It makes it very complex for me to do this review because I really do like the two of them. But I just liked the way Jill kind of, said what she said. She stood up for what she stood up for. And it worked out perfect. It worked out perfect. And Dorinda, if I have to choose one or the other on this particular round of arguments, I'm Team Jill. And it's hard to say that, but it is the truth. Out of nowhere, Taylor comes up and says, this Adrian story, when you kind of went on television, obviously they're filming a reality show, and you said, oh, well, Adrian, the daughter, or was it the daughter or the son? Sorry, pardon me, I actually don't remember the child. But it was an adoption or something of that nature that was not known within the context of the family. And I guess my question to you is, was Brandi wrong for that? Brandi's comment is, we're on a reality show, it should all be expected to come out. And that's been a weird thing too, because on some level, things that are within you, yes, should come out. But what's actually happening sometimes too is people are also using that same excuse, like, you're on a reality show, everything's available to come out, basing things on rumors, let's say. And so now it's like, I heard. Not that the Adrian thing was I heard. This was Brandi having the information, and it did mess up some stuff. But I just don't know. I'm usually so strongly opinionated, but because I didn't watch the early Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, because Kyle, completely made the show insanely boring, as did Lisa Vanderpump, and Camille was my favorite, and Adrian was my favorite, and I liked Brandi on season 2. And because all the ones I liked weren't really the big, they weren't getting the big shine. I never really consistently watched a lot of Beverly Hills, probably until Garcelle and Denise Richards started. So I've only spot watched. So because I don't really know the context of that story, I can't really say was Brandi wrong. But it does sound pretty bad. It really, really does. But that's not even what really makes things bad about this dinner. And it was going so good. Phaedra was right. It was going so good. Taylor, I guess her anger is starting to really build up, because she wanted to address that with Brandi. Brandi, I don't think she said sorry, but she didn't she wasn't in a fighting mood or whatever. And it just kind of went back and forth. And I think Brandi, for the most part, was being very just trying to diffuse the situation. But now we're getting to a point where we can't diffuse the situation. Taylor is saying that the show was more successful before Brandi, and says that she doesn't want to and says that she doesn't want somebody like Brandi to just come in season 2 and actually she says that they were more successful, basically saying like, you coming into season 2 meant nothing. And that's not a really fun thing to hear. But I don't know, was the show always so successful? And Beverly Hills is so funny to me, because I know that everyone virtually loves it, and I'm one of the few that's like, overrated, bump, 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 overrated. It's like, it's overrated. It's never that good. Because like I said, Kyle slows and has made that show just awful for years, and she's been their lead person. So I mean, I can never get behind an award. I can never get behind, but they're the ones with the more fabulous houses. The house don't mean nothing to me. Give me some culture, give me some energy, give me some flow, give me some storylines, give me some I was with these people back in the 80s, and we were doing, give me something. Not your like money that's not going to impress me. But Beverly Hills seems to have that. And anyways, by the way, I'm not trying to say that if housewife has a lot of money, that they're not a great housewife. I just say, if you're a housewife who has a lot of money and you have a hot husband as well, and you're still that uninteresting, that's pretty challenging. That's all I'm saying, simply. And I'm sure Kyle's a nice lady, but I can't wait for her to get a spinoff so she doesn't stay on the show. That would be so great. Anyways, back to Taylor's issue. We were a good show, and then you only came in, and you just came in to be a little firecracker, but the show was good. We created that, and of course we were protective of our show, and you destroyed it or whatever. Brandi still isn't going back and forth with her. However, she says, you don't want me jumping over the table, which is a threat. which is a threat. So I don't know if that was the best move for Taylor or if she really meant it. But it was definitely nothing you should really be saying, because now all bets are off, and still in this moment, Brandi isn't really that mad. But Brandi is a wordsmith. And a couple of the sentences here, I'm going to really walk them slowly just to get your input. Or actually, I don't really need your input, but just to let's hear it again. Brandi states that season 2 wasn't successful before the tragic issue with Taylor's husband. And, it was worded much harsher than that. And that really knocks up the table. The table is just like everyone's reacting, and it is somewhat looked at this moment as a below the belt moment. And I just wondered what your reaction was to that, because Brandi should not have said that. But, if there's two different issues that Taylor's coming at her for, what do we want Brandi to do? Taylor was a bit mad. She says she's going to jump over the table. She says that, you did this to Adrian. I can't believe you did this to Adrian. I can't believe you did this to Adrian. Some of the other women don't even understand why Taylor cares so much, but we'll let that go. And then you come a little harder by saying, oh, well, it was, you had said that the show didn't start till I got there. Hey, maybe it didn't. Like I said, I didn't start really watching Housewives of Atlanta till season 5 when the great Kenya Moore came onto the show, so there might be some truth to it, but it really didn't sit well with everyone that Brandi did push back. And the way she pushed back was kind of saying that, very similar to what she said in the flashbacks we saw at the reunion, like, oh, this had happened with your husband, and two days later you had a book deal or whatever. But luckily they got through that, because Taylor had mentioned, well, that was only because, there was a financial situation tied into, quite a bit of drama beyond the tragedy. So it was a whole messy situation. I didn't really need it to go this particular place, but everyone reacts. And I think this is a moment where Dorinda, she unmentionably explains, like, okay, Dorinda, let's see, I can't even say it. We got to slow it down. Dorinda is drunk. Yes, we'll put that on the table. Dorinda heard what she wanted to hear, and she heard, the aspect of loss, and she of course personalized it and took it to Richard. And I feel for her, I do. But then she, in her drunker moments, and I don't know how she feels watching that back, because it was not great. And I'm not going to put out exactly what she broke it down to as, but let's say if Brandi talked about the tragedy that Taylor went through, Dorinda unmentionably hypothesizes that what would you feel like if something like this happened to someone close to you, let's say, which this was shitty. This was a shitty moment by Dorinda, which required Brandi to step away. Because, like I said, it was all of these moments. I mean, when you break down this restaurant from 1773, it's like the three most dramatic things just happened in the last 10 minutes, opposed to the last 200 something years. It's just funny to me. No, it just like you think that the Jill and Dorinda thing is enough, but no. Taylor has her issue with Brandi, and then they keep going, higher and cutting deeper. But this one was really, really something. I mean, this was one of those ones where when Dorinda said it, the crowd, or not the crowd, but the cast reacted. And then when you really hear it back and really listen to it a second time, you're like, Dorinda, you cannot say it. Like that's I'll say it the best. Someone else said this. I think it was Jill. That is bad karma. You don't play like that. That is not a way to explain something, or, oh, well, imagine. That is one thing we don't imagine. We don't imagine that. So Dorinda definitely got a, slap on the wrist in that regard, because that was not good. But now I don't know where Dorinda's mindset is. We actually see Brandi escorting herself out. She's talking with some of the other gals and sort of doing the right thing, because that could really light you up. Yeah, I may have said something about, Taylor and her husband that was really bad, but you can't cross this line with Brandi, now and her children. I mean, that's, you just can't do it. And so I love that Brandi got up. She separated herself. She made her own. Let me just take a moment. What was funny in that? Thank God we had something funny. Is they were talking about like Taylor and her being so I think it was Taylor. Where is this coming from? Why is Taylor so? Because Taylor was the one who sort of riled all this up. Dorinda just jumped in as a drunk comment that really shouldn't have, but we won't talk about that right now. And they were like, oh, something like, Phaedra's like, oh, you don't need to be fighting with a woman that's, who could be your mother. And then Brandi goes, she's only 5 years older than me. I mean, that was the greatest knock that you could have done when you weren't really trying to shade her, but you did. I thought that was quality Brandi at its finest. Anyways, Brandi does essentially walk in after she restrains herself, and Dorinda's pissed at Brandi. And this is like Dorinda actually, what I didn't like is Dorinda actually see, this is where is this her personality, or is this her overstepping her hosting duties again? Just like a little thing, well, this is not a little thing no more, but a little thing like, hey, Eva, can I do the radio show with you? Dorinda like isn't just hospitable, but she's almost demanding in a way. And with this, Dorinda just said something that was like really bad, and she doesn't like sit on it and chill for a moment. She goes in and has to like correct Brandi, but Brandi restrained herself, sure, but she's seeing red, and Brandi says bitch, and not in the nice way, not like bitch. She said bitch in the like get the fuck out of my face kind of way. So I'm not saying Brandi was going to get physical, and I hate when the housewife shows get physical. I say that all the time. The show should be about a good read, a good snarky comment, some maybe deeper stories, but the whole like, and I've said this before and I don't want to be redundant, but the whole like it has to be a Teresa goes to jail moment or a Jen Shaw trial moment or Erica Jane moment to be compelling. I don't believe that at all. So within that, I also don't believe they need to be physical. The moment Portia put hands on Kenya, Portia would have never been on the network had I been in charge. And I don't want to hear, Kenya incited her. Portia is a grown-up, and evidently not always, because we've seen her actions many years later. But I don't really like that. That's what that is a layer of the show that I feel is not great. I think they should be fun, and they really should be kind of like Brandi. Make these little snide comments and keep it happy, keep it funny, escapism TV. Anyways, I don't want to go over and over and over, but that's where we're at. There's a lot of action here, and that's all at the restaurant. So Eva says, it's all happening. It's all happening at her old work job. She's never going to get hired here again. So that was the fascinating part about it too, that it was at the Red Lion. What's it called? The Red Lion Inn. The Red Lion Inn. And a lot of stuff just kind of came to the front of the table. That's all I got for right now. We don't have a preview, but we know we're on episode 5, so we'll be back on episode 6 to recap it, and just giving some viewpoints. I'm not saying I got the best viewpoints, but I'm going to just try to do what works for me in this hot ass summer. I don't want to see Jill and Dorinda going at it. I don't want to, but maybe we'll see a little bit more of that next episode. And whatever the story becomes, I think maybe some intrigue would be, maybe Phaedra's had it really good so far, but maybe somebody does kind of ask, hey, Phaedra, what was your experience like? Good and bad, where you were accountable and the parts that were actually hard for you based on what you did with Kandi. I wouldn't mind seeing that. I really wouldn't mind seeing that. I'm not saying we're going to see that, but I think that's as a Phaedra fan, but also a really big Kandi fan. I think a lot of us are complexed with like, she's back on the TV, but it's been many years and she's been funny and she's been great. She's been good TV, but I think having a little moment to kind of explain it, kind of like when Taylor was explaining some stuff with Brandi, and like Brandi didn't really understand until Taylor explained it in detail. I think that these explanations are very good. Whether you did something wrong or whether you have questions about something, it's perfect for the show. But that's about it. I, of course, as I always say, make sure you check out some of the other broadcasts that we have, randomly with RonnieJr.com, difficultpodcasters.com, popculturepov.com, and let's shine a light on it.com. All of them are tons of fun to work on it. And of course, randomly with Ronnie Jr., the podcast, and Difficult Podcasters are also really fun and just be above and beyond. I've been in the broadcast space for so many years, but not in the YouTube space, and it's a little harder to get the comments, likes, and subscribe. So even though I've had all these years and these fascinating moments of hosting live television, live radio, all of these things, sometimes it gets a harder moment to get this off the ground. And obviously it's not a new project, but I'm ready for it to speed up a little bit, with the viewership and the likes and the comments and the subscriptions. So that is something that would make me happy. As you see on the screen, I'm just showing some of the photos from years past. I mean, there's a picture on the upper left with early Miguel career and early Beyonce career. Joe Rogan, was not even a podcaster in the picture in the upper right. The picture on the bottom is Christina Milian at a Vegas radio station. I mean, there's just so many different things that I've done over the years, work-wise, and just being out and about or whatever, that I like to bring all of that to this show. But this show is mostly us talking about housewives or whatnot. But I try to bring all of that into the channel itself, which is randomlyRonniejr.com. And if you wanted to show a little extra support, it's patreon.com/randomlyRonnieJr. That's the one that you could do where you could say, oh, I really like the show. I understand it's like a, independent little situation versus like a big old company. And by the way, I've worked for all the big companies or whatever over the years. I produced a podcast for VH1. I've worked at Complex. We did a show for Fuse TV. I've been on Fuse TV. I've got all these experiences. But when you're doing it at this level, sometimes the Patreon is a very appreciative thing. So if you wanted to support, I would just say thank you. I guess that's the end of the show. We'll take you out right now. I appreciate all your support, and I try my best to not necessarily tear anyone down in regards to this, unless, if there's bad behavior, you have to talk about it. And I try to make sure my words are at least understandable in terms of like, I just thought Tamara was a little less than interesting this episode, and she had the least compelling stuff, and her sound bites weren't that funny. Menopause manner, womp womp womp. But nonetheless, it was still fun to kind of get on this platform and just kind of chit chat about it. All right, it is a hot summer night, and it's time to go.
Hey, Ronnie Jr.